Hello and welcome. I am so glad you could join us today. I hope you are having a wonderful day. If it is a character building day, I will make it as awesome as it should be. You are listening to the Motivation Monday Power Hour. I am your host, Motivated Mike. Today's topic is habits. What are habits? Well, it really makes us who we are. What we do is who we are. Now, what goes into a habit? It's something that happens repeatedly. First, there is a cue. There is something that causes us to do an action. Routine is what we do. And then there is a reward. The reward is what we get after we do the routine. And over time, we develop a craving. This craving, it takes place in our brain. When we don't get the reward, chemistry in our brain makes us feel disappointed. It makes us feel let down. It makes us feel like we have to do it. And what's interesting about the craving is after a while, it doesn't take place at the reward stage, the very end of the habit. It takes place at the cue stage of the habit, right as you begin to think about the routine. So how can we create habits? Now, to create a habit, it takes some time, but once you start, you will be amazed at what happens. First, you will need to create a simple cue. What do you want to start the habit? Now, for a while, to get into the gym and get motivated to go to the gym, to create a habit, I started off with one song on a playlist to just energize me, get me ready, get me motivated. And then, of course, the gym was the routine. And the reward it wasn't anything tangible. It was just the feeling that I got. The feeling was the reward. And you must clearly define that reward. In order to have a habit, if you don't have the reward, it's just going to fall apart. You're not going to repeatedly do it over and over. We must identify the cues and rewards that are involved in our habits. We must train ourselves to be aware. We must watch ourselves. We must change response with the same award. So, when you have a routine and a habit, you must fulfill a different routine while keeping the cues and the rewards the same. Now, don't get me wrong, understanding will not make a bad habit disappear, but will allow for a plan to be created. And this plan will help change the habit. Plans create the change that we want in our habits. Now, there is some things. If you're an alcoholic, the physical and chemical craving lasts 100 hours, which is a very interesting thing. After 100 hours, it's all mental. It's all a mind game. Now, do you think that the alcoholics drink because they like the taste of the alcohol? That's not usually the case. Sometimes the reward might be just being in a social setting. I know a lot of us who drink at mines just to have fun, let loose, and have a good time. But we must be careful not to become alcoholics. And here's another interesting fact. Good habits have spillover effects. One good habit can create more good habits, and other good habits will spread to you. Now, this goes back to what I was saying last week. Birds of a feather flock together. If you hang out with losers, you will become a loser without even realizing it. It'll happen subconsciously. So you got to watch who you hang out with and make sure that you don't pick up their bad habits. Maybe you want to pick up their good habits. I don't know. My current roommate, he's a pretty clean guy. He's yelling at me recently for having spots on the countertops. I didn't even notice these, honestly, and leaving dishes in the sink. And it's creating a new habit in me just by being around him. And now I'm putting the dishes away and picking up all these clean habits. Now you know what'll happen. I'll go back home over spring break and pick up the old bad habits again. But it's all right, though. But just be aware. The people who you hang out with will pass on their habits, whether they're good or whether they're not so good. Birds of a feather flock together. Another interesting thing, habits can become a company-level phenomenon. Big companies, they have habits as well. They create a culture. And at first it confused me. I didn't understand why some of these companies were just pushing safety so far that they put it past production and absolutely everything else. Now I understand why, you'd want to go home safely at the end of the day and all of that. Amen, everybody should be safe. But should it really go above production? And the first company that I looked at that did this, I did some research on this, was Alcoa Aluminum. And during the time, the company was having quite a few issues in terms of just getting management and the workers to work together to really create a better product. And what happened? They kept missing the shareholder expectations. And so they hired this man, Paul O'Neill. And so what he did was he stood up there in front of those investors and said, "We are going to focus on safety." And the investors, as you can imagine, they were just like me back in the day. It's like, what? Safety? How's that going to solve the problems? How's that going to lead to a positive end result? But what happened was actually pretty amazing. The company got in the habit of good communication skills. Once again, the spillover effect. Not only did they become one of the safest companies to work for, ideas resonated from the bottom to the very upper levels of management, and this allowed them to become much more efficient with their resources. A lot of good things happened. They also came up with the email. They were the first company to come up with this email, as far as I could tell. And this allowed them to transport their messages to the investors to really make a killing in the stock market. It was pretty amazing what they did. But they are a great example of a habit at a company level, and they chose to embrace safety, and that's really a respectable thing. And you must work to challenges with constant effort and over time. Your habits, they don't just happen overnight. It takes a while to get them established. But the longer you have these habits, the easier it becomes. The more rewarding it will feel. The more you will do it without even realizing it, and good things will happen. And habits, they always stay with us unless a major event happens in our life. That's a very interesting statistic. There are some habits, people give up drinking. They don't return to drinking until something very bad happens in their life, and then they pick it up again. So what exactly happens there? I know that there's the AA meetings where they come and all the alcoholics and they have the 12 steps. The 12 steps isn't what really makes it successful. What makes it great is that they identify the cue, they identify the routine and the reward, but they also give people a sense of identity. It helps them overcome the major events that happen in our life. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe somebody had someone die and then they drank because of it. What the AA does is they say, you can put your faith in God and He will give you the strength to overcome it. Now, I'm not saying you need God necessarily. I mean, it is a great thing, don't get me wrong. But it's not really what's needed. You just gotta look at yourself in the mirror and say, that's not who I am anymore. I am not an alcoholic. I am whatever you want to call yourself. It doesn't really matter. The same principle goes to people who habitually commit crimes as well. They get out of jail and then they see themselves as criminals. And that's really a destructive mindset. But the ones who don't, the ones who look at themselves and say, I'm now a valuable member of society. I will be a valuable member. I will contribute. Those are the ones that you really see become successful and reach out. I remember when I used to play RuneScape. If you don't know what that is, it's a video game. And I'm sure plenty of people at mines at one point or another became addicted to a video game. It happens. And I played that for years and years. But eventually there was just a point in my life that I just stopped and thought about it, you know. The event in my life that just made me think, I really don't need this anymore. I'm going to take some time. I'm going to spend it doing other things. I'm going to try and use that time to develop a better life. Now what happened, I'll be honest, it didn't work out for me. What happened was I eventually found this website called Reddit. And then my routine became, instead of playing RuneScape, it went to just browsing Reddit. Very, very bad. Don't do what I did. But anyway, that's just an example of, everybody struggles with addiction sometimes. It's okay. But you got to be willing to change. If you want what you're currently getting, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want something more, be willing to change. And another interesting aspect of habits is willpower. It can be created. Willpower can also grow and carry over to other aspects of your life. And I have another example. This one's a company level one as well. In Starbucks, we have Travis Schultz. He needed to let go of the past so he could grow. He really grew up in a rough area, rough state. And what he did was he joined Starbucks. And now he's a successful coffee salesman. It's pretty amazing. But what they taught him, I don't know if they still teach this at Starbucks. I haven't actually gone to Starbucks. I don't drink it very often. But the strategy is latte. Latte. When they encounter a stressful situation, and as you can imagine, some people are just never happy. It's going to happen eventually where you get one person that maybe you made a mistake on their coffee and they're very upset. So what they do is latte. They listen, then they acknowledge, then they take action, thank the person for bringing this problem to their attention, and then explain to management why the problem occurred. In this system that they created, it brought Starbucks a lot of success and a lot of popularity. And not to mention, it also gave them good customer service. And good systems can transform winners into losers. I mean, this Travis, he was in a tough state, but he became successful. And he really turned his life around, and it was quite amazing. And companies can also promote good habits, too. For example, if the company promotes a weight loss class or a gym membership, those habits will create willpower that will carry over into what they do at the company. And that is really an amazing thing that happens. And it's a wonder of psychology. That's all I can describe it as. But it is needed in times of stress. When things are going badly, when things are going terribly, that's when you need the willpower to say, no, I'm not going to change my life. I'm going to stick on the road that I'm going on. I'm going to make it happen for me. And to preserve willpower, you can also preserve it as well within a company. And I think it's a pretty grand for the companies that do this. To preserve willpower in a company, you have positive leaders. They're never negative. They're always positive and looking to help you grow. And they also give employees a sense of authority. So what this means is maybe they let them decorate their workspace. Maybe they let them wear whatever they want instead of a suit and a tie. I know that some companies can't do that. In the mining world, long pants is usually a must, and steel-toed boots are a must. But for other companies, it's a great idea. It preserves willpower. It gives people a sense of freedom. gives them a little bit of creativity. It lets them have a little more fun, and that really carries a long way as compared to the workload that you could get out of them. It's amazing. But crises will happen in companies. It's inevitable. Now we want to minimize them and make them as small as possible. But they can also be used as an opportunity to change and become better. Now, crises, a lot of them are blown out of proportion thanks to the media these days. That's okay, though, because companies can use it as an opportunity to change. When this happens, it empowers everyone to act in the company's best interest. It really allows people to come together to fix the problems. It allows management to listen and change. Now, a lot of management, they say if it's working, don't do anything, and that's a lot of the philosophy. But what if you could make it better? What if you can make it even more productive, safer, etc.? And if you're still not convinced that habits exist, what if I told you supermarkets use habits to sell products? Now, I'm sure you've heard of Target a while back ago when they knew that the man's daughter was pregnant before the father even knew. And that was a huge problem, and the father was outraged. Why are you sending my daughter advertisements for these and these items, these baby items? Are you assuming something? And the manager of the local Target apologized, and he's like, I don't know what happened. But then a few months later, he calls him back and says, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, Target. But Target, the amazing thing is that they know before any other store when somebody is pregnant. And nowadays they try and hide that. So nowadays they mix in other items along with the baby supplies and everything else, just so they don't have that issue anymore. So it just looks like a normal advertisement. Of course, what would they throw in? Well, things that they would never buy. So they might put a sale on alcohol in there and, things like that. But they collect a lot of information, a lot of data. And using that information, they can figure out what shoppers will buy. And they also get other information from it. For example, if you buy cereal without any milk at a Target, they know you must be buying that milk somewhere else, and they will send you coupons for milk. So now all you cereal lovers out there, you have another secret from Motivated Mike, how you can get some coupons. But they also know that what you buy is what you're going to continue to buy each and every week because of your habits. They know if you buy frozen pizzas every week, they can predict that you're going to come back and buy more frozen pizzas. It's just how it works. And it's pretty amazing that they do these habits. And they also have trends that are less specialized and are not unique to each person. They also have the big things. Like, for example, when you walk into the store, what do you do after you walk into the store? You walk right. So what do? They put the products that they have the highest profit margin on to the right. Here's another trick that they do. I was going to explain this one in a later episode, but that's all right. This idea is called the moral credential effect, which means that if we buy fruit at the beginning, then we can use that to later justify buying that bag of cookies at the very end of the store. We say, oh, since we have so much healthy food, that's okay if we take the frozen pizza, that's okay if we take the chips, that's okay if we take all of this junk food. And stores know this. So what do? You walk in the store, you go right. There's all the fruit and all the vegetables. You load it into the cart. Would it make sense if it was at the end? Yeah, but they wouldn't make as much money. I mean, in reality, fruit is pretty fragile. You should have it at the top of the cart, theoretically. And the breads too and all that. But no, you see the fruit, you buy the fruit, and then you use it to justify the cookies and the junk food. and that is what happens. And higher profit products are always on the right side of the store since we are more likely to turn to the right. It's a very interesting statistic. And we also see habits in radio, believe it or not. Radio stations play new songs in between existing hits. This music then creates patterns. It sounds familiar. We listen to it, we learn to like it, and then we accept it and embrace it. And the radio stations, they know this. They've been doing this for a long time. And in gyms, they also have habits. They try and remember people's names and say hello each and every time that somebody enters just to improve membership rates. It's true, they do. In casinos and lotteries, they have near wins to keep us playing. This is a very interesting one. It creates the craving and makes us feel like we've won even though we haven't. These near wins, it helps us become addicted. And I know it's terrible, but it's kind of a cost benefit. I mean, casinos, they're great and they're terrible at the same time. What are you going to do? I mean, I'm pretty libertarian, so I'd say, let people know about the risks and then let them decide if they'd like to go or not. And here's another interesting thing that I didn't really know until recently. Movements also have habits. It starts with the habit of friendship. When a big movement comes up, friends are the first to buy into it. And you know why? Because we will stand up for others who we value and respect. And then what happens? The habits grow out of a community. We have our communities, we have our clubs and organizations that we are a part of. And that social peer pressure, that really helps spread the idea. It helps spread the actions, the volunteering, the protests, absolutely everything. And then leaders, what they try and do in the end is promote a new sense of identity, something that everyone can get around to promote movements. And this is habitual. They do it, and it's amazing how it works. If you ever watch the news and you can watch the habits in action, I think we all realize Black Lives Matter, whether you like them or not. It developed just like any other movement. It starts with a habit of friendship, then we stand up for others, and then the community grows out of the habit, and social peer pressure takes hold and keeps people together. And civil rights movements, they all go through this process as well. And then leaders provide the sense of identity that is so critical to keep the movement alive and going. This is an awesome quote by Aristotle. Some thinkers hold that it is by nature people are good, others that it is by habit, and others that is by instruction. But Aristotle, he believed that it was by habit. Habit makes us good or bad. Again, he believed that the mind was like a garden that must be tended to. If you have good habits, you are creating good things in your garden. You're creating the roses, the trees, the flowers. But if you have bad habits, you're just growing weeds. And you're growing habits because it's easy to grow weeds. Anybody can grow weeds. You don't need anyone impressive to grow trees and flowers and all of that. But you just have to make it your habits, look at your ways, decide to make changes. And William James, there's another philosopher. He promoted the idea that habits create happiness and success. I've read some of his work. It's pretty good work. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Zen Buddhism kind of philosophies. But it's still good. It's still good. And we got to make sure bad decisions do not become habits. Do not by sorry about that. By emphasizing rewards around good decisions, we can create good habits. But we must be careful not to embrace rewards that we get from bad habits. You can mix up routines after a cue. So if you don't like the routine that comes after it starts the habit, you can always change what routines you do to keep things new and different. Keep growing as a person. And if you're trying to fix bad habits or create new habits, I'm going to give you a little roadmap here. So first, you must identify the routine. You must experiment with the reward. And you must change the reward and ask in 15 minutes if the craving is satisfied. And then you must isolate the cue. What starts the routine? How does it start? Does your routine for eating cookies happen after you see the cookies? After you smell the cookies? Things like that. That's usually how it happens. And other cues of why we do these habits. And a cue is just something that puts the routine in our mind and makes us think about it until we get the craving and we must do it. And cues are usually location, maybe it's a time of day, an emotional state, maybe it's people. It could be a preceding action. So maybe every time you walk by the McDonald's, you see the McDonald's, and then you have to stop. You can't not stop. And alcoholics, sometimes when they see the bar, they realize that that bar is their cue. That after they see it, they have to stop in. Maybe it's the time of day. Maybe every day at 4 o'clock, you just have to get up and smoke that cigarette because that's what you've done many, many times in the past. And this is a very bad habit. You got to quit smoking. But if you can find something else to do at 4 p.m., for example, instead, you might be surprised on what kind of changes that you can make. Sometimes it's our emotional state. Some people, maybe if they're stressed, they can't sleep at night. Very bad habit. But their emotional state is likely to determine what routine they're going to do. And people. Sometimes people can lead us to habits. Maybe every time we see that friend, we get into the habit of, going bowling or something, for example. People can create habits in your life. And preceding action. What happens before the routine takes place? Now, this could be pretty much anything. You can look into your life and examine that. I don't have any examples here. But using all of that, you must first create a plan. You got to create a plan to change. And after you know what the reward is, and you can give yourself that reward, after you go through all this work and create the plan, then you can change the routine and begin to change your life and go in the right direction. And it's pretty inspiring. So my book of the week this week, I have the book, The Power of Habits, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business. And this book has taught me almost everything I know about habits, probably about 60% of what I know. It's written by Charles Duhigg. It's a pretty amazing book. And he talks about all the science behind it. He talks about all the case studies with the rats in the cages and how he gets them addicted to things. It is, well, not him personally, but, the scientist, and he writes about it. It's pretty amazing. He talks about the habits of individuals, talks about the habit loop, the cue, routine, and reward that I was referring to earlier. He talks about the cravings that the brain has, all the chemistry, the neurology. And he talks about the golden rule of habits, which is that newfound sense of identity that I was discussing earlier. And then he goes off into the habits of successful organizations. This is where I learned about Paul O'Neill, that inspiring story. In Starbucks as well, and creating good things from crises and how companies know what you want before you do. It's really a great book. Then he talks about habits and societies and things of that nature. But I'd recommend this book. I'm not endorsing the product. I'm not saying you should buy it. Just go to the library and read it. It's there. I read it at the library first. I bought myself a copy, though, because it's a great book. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And now I'd like to go into just some local news. My co-producer's here as well, so he can discuss the news as well with me. So my first topic, I'm going to bring this local. As you know, in Golden we have that construction project, the Lincoln Lookout Project. Now this project, what they're trying to do is build an overpass on this road in Golden, Colorado. And, I looked at the plans today. It is incredible. I was passing by the construction area. One of the older gentlemen was having a conversation with another older gentleman about all the money that got spent in it. I'll let you decide if this is a good deal. I'll just present the facts here. So how much do you think it cost them to build this overpass? Let's see what number you would say.
Well, first, I don't really completely understand the project. Are they making it so there's no intersection between 19th and 6th? Like there's going to be no stoplight there?
So what they're doing, instead of a stoplight, they have a road that comes underneath the bridge, and then they have an overpass so the other road can go above it. How much do you think that would cost? Just I know you're new in engineering,
yeah.
But just to embrace this point, so then you'll say, wow, when they actually give you the final number. Just take a guess.
It's got to be a fair amount of money. I'll say $2 million.
$2 million. Now that's a very interesting estimate. So the real cost of the Lincoln Lookout project, so CDOT is giving them $20 million.
Wow.
The city of Golden is giving them $4 million. And the Colorado School of Mines is pitching in $1 million. So the total cost of this project is $25 million. And these are coming out of our taxes, too. And some of it is coming from mines. Probably where that construction fee is heading. I know, it's crazy. When the older gentleman looking at the construction site told me this, I was like, what? There's no way they got $25 million to build a simple overpass. And he's like, oh, no. They were building this overpass. They were going to put a garden above the thing. They're going to build this park. $25 million? Nice? I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, just today I watched a YouTube video of the town hall meeting on what they were proposing here. This was a few months ago.
Right.
And their main incentive was safety, believe it or not.
Huh.
So safety of the students was the real reason why they needed this park floating in the middle of the air, of course. I mean, you could build a park and it would cost you nothing compared to this. I mean, it's expensive.
I mean, safety makes sense for getting rid of that stoplight and just making it an overpass, but the park doesn't seem to add to safety much.
Well, keep in mind, so we have this bridge. 2/3 of it is planned to be a community park, and 1/3 of it is the road itself. And this is a big road. This is, it's 2 lanes each way. It's
right.
It's like, what do you mean? That is crazy. I mean, the plans, they had trees. I mean, this thing is not small. It is pretty large, and that's why I was pretty amazed by this. And of course, I talked to the construction workers who were there. I don't want to get any of them in trouble, so I won't mention any names. But they're behind schedule. This is where it gets even better. And the main reason what happened was the water, all the rain we've been getting, caused slope stability issues.
Oh, no.
So it's probably going to be over budget and behind schedule. Yeah, did I mention that right? Yeah. So it's going to cost even more than they planned, and it's going to take longer than they planned. But they said it's going to be completed. Oh, let's see. I should have written that down. Completed September of 2017. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. And also, as an engineer, it just kind of made me curious. How much would it cost if, for example, we just wanted to build this overpass and not have anything else included? We said we just didn't need the park. So what I did was I went to my trusty source, Google, and they led me to Florida CDOT, or the Florida CDOT, so Florida Department of Transportation. And they gave me costing information. And what they do is they give you the cost of a bridge per square foot of area. And they give a range for it too. Depends what kind of bridge you want.
Right.
So just for fun, just to see what number that would give me. So I typed in a 150-foot medium span bridge. I assumed that it would be a phased construction, meaning, they would need to build an access road and everything else in the meantime, which they are. Mm-hmm. And I assumed that there were 4 lanes, and each lane was approximately 12 feet, so I just bumped it up to 50 feet.
All right.
Give a little space for a sidewalk, too. And this is pretty generous. I mean, that bridge is not going to be 50 feet, or 150 feet. It's not going to be that big. But using the most expensive building method, excluding the drawbridges, those are different, the project cost came out to $1.9 million. That was the highest estimate. The lowest was under $1 million.
So you're telling me we have a $23 million park getting put in?
Well, I will admit, there are some errors in this simple calculation. Of course, I had to rip up some of the old roads and put in new roads. Sure, maybe $1 million there. And there might be some differences between Florida and Colorado. We have the aggregate cost, the labor cost. I don't know what the differences are from Florida and Colorado. I'm assuming that they're about the same, though. And yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that being more than maybe $3 million max. I mean, it's pennies compared to this $25 million, I'd say. Just thought I'd bring that to everybody's attention. When I looked it up, I was just blown away by this. It's like, how much?
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Oh, and I'd also like to invite listeners to call in if they would like. The number is 303-273-3304. And I'm just going to continue on to other news stories. If anyone wants to call in and discuss this project, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you want to point out some intangible aspects to a park that make it worth $25 million with the overpass. I don't know. It is what it is. In other news, the presidential debate is tonight. Pretty exciting stuff.
Really?
Who are you rooting for?
I honestly have no idea. I haven't watched very much of either of these candidates, so it'll sort of be a clean slate for me starting off tonight.
Ah, fair enough. I was talking with 2 older gentlemen today, and in the wasted money in the construction project, directly related to politics, and without a doubt, it stirred up some quite the drama. It was I was trying to get out of that conversation for about 20 minutes.
Can't blame you.
But the general consensus was that one of them hated both candidates. The other one was like, you have to go with Trump. Hillary's so bad. And you can have opinions about it. It makes things interesting. It's definitely going to be the presidential debate tonight. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think for me it may be the lesser of 2 evils deciding here.
Well, they also have the Libertarian candidate, is he Gary Johnson? I think. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Pretty much sums up third-party candidates in America.
That's fair.
They have Jill Stein of the Green Party. I'm not a big fan of Jill Stein. She's a little bit too green for me.
Somebody was saying that one of the third-party candidates was very close to making it into this debate.
I'm going to take a guess that that's the Libertarian candidate.
Probably.
Yeah, of course, there's a number of them. You can look on Wikipedia and get a whole list of about 100 people, and it's
Of
like,
course.
who? but yeah, Republican, Democrats, and Libertarian. Also made a bingo card, so we'll see if something funny comes up, then we can make fun of it and cross it off the bingo card. Let's see if I can find a few examples here. We have Hillary Clinton's health. If that comes up, that's one square of my bingo card. In the middle, I have my safe space. You know how that goes. College campuses, we got to have safe spaces.
Of course.
We have Obamacare on my bingo card. We have the quote, a lot of people. So, I mean, this isn't all attacking Hillary. I tried to come up with a few of each just to be funny and see where it goes. And yeah, I look forward to it. It's probably going to be an interesting debate. See if gun control comes up. And in other news, on the more positive side, an Australian man has patented the ham dog, which is a combination of a hot dog and a hamburger. So what do you think of the ham dog?
I'm imagining ground beef pressed into a hot dog shape and then cooked and then sliced into small pieces and put on a hamburger bun.
You're not too far off. It was basically they had the bread, which was the shape of a hot dog bun that gets fat in the middle, and they just kind of threw all the meats together.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, we better call the Nobel Prize Committee. This man's up next. His name is Mark Murray. This can go into my motivational speaking too. He was on Shark Tank, and you know what happened? He got turned down. They laughed at him. Like, nobody's going to buy that. But now look where we are. He's selling it, he's pushing product, and he's making money. It's profitable for him to do this. So just keep in mind, if the experts laugh at your dream, find different experts.
That's a good idea. The ham dog.
Now, another outrageous patent that was in the news this past week. Apple just patented their newest innovation, the paper bag.
The paper bag.
This one's a new one, though. It's 60% recycled white paper. It's made by white, solid, bleached sulfate paper, and they patented this high-tech, futuristic bag.
Wow. I'm sure they were going to lose a lot of money from people copying their paper bag.
Have to sue for the copyright infringement, the patents. And no, it doesn't come with the headphone jack.
Yeah, I was going to say, I figured they patented not having a headphone jack.
In other news, the Crime Stoppers president was charged $3 million in a pot bust.
Wow, that is...
We have some
sad.
irony this week, yeah.
Some bitter irony.
And the homeless man who found the New Jersey bombs, he was given an apartment and job prospects. Pretty exciting.
Wow, yeah. Good for him.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
No, if I owned a company, I'd consider giving him a job. I mean, see what skills he has. We can always use someone.
Yeah.
I don't have a company yet, but
How
maybe
exactly
someday.
did he find the bombs? Do you know? Did he just stumble across them? Or?
I didn't actually read the article, but I think he just
Okay.
stumbled across them, and then he alerted
Interesting.
authorities, and then they were able to remedy the situation safely.
Good for him.
And on other good news, Jason Brown, the ex-football player, this was the guy who made $25 million in a contract. He quit football to become a farmer. What do you think of that?
Well, it makes me think of the Romans, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because farming was considered to be pretty much the most noble profession there was. Because I guess you're working with your hands, working with the land, and actually producing food, one of the most valuable resources. And so, back when they were a republic, they would elect dictators occasionally when they needed people to take temporary absolute power. But one of the most well-remembered, one of the most highly respected of these dictators. They gave him power, and then at the end of his term, basically, he just left and went back to farming, refused to ever be dictator again.
It kind of reminds me of that one Roman emperor. I can't remember his name, but he rose to power saying all the conquered lands were going to go to the peasants, and then they didn't. So then there was a whole bunch of drama, and I thought what happened was he eventually got killed by
Wouldn't
an
be
angry mob.
surprised. He was pretty much asking for it, it sounds like.
Or, you know, you can only do so much when you try and fail, but it is what it is. But anyway, let's get back to this Jason Brown, the football
right, that's
player.
what we were talking about,
Yeah.
Jason Brown.
So this is the amazing part. He learned farming off of YouTube. Think about that for a
Wow.
minute.
How long has he been farming? Did he just start?
Oh, I think he started, I don't know how long ago. It might have been a few years ago, but
Do you know how it's going for him with his
oh, it's actually
YouTube
going
education?
really well. It's amazing. He's growing excess produce, and he's giving this produce to the less fortunate.
Nice.
This fall, he gave 46,000 pounds of tomatoes and 10,000 pounds of cucumbers to the less fortunate.
Dang.
So that epitomizes what I'm trying to tell
That's a
you.
lot.
You got to be successful and then give back afterwards.
That's good.
So what skills have you learned on YouTube?
What skills have I learned on YouTube? I learned how to replace an iPhone screen. My iPhone, it was a 5C. I had dropped it a couple times, and then the screen just turned into colorful lines.
Oh, no.
It was a downer. But I went and talked to some people about getting the screen replaced, which was pretty expensive.
Oh, I could imagine.
Yeah, but then I thought, heck, why can't I just do this myself? And so I looked on Amazon for a screen. I think you can get some pretty cheap ones. I went for one that was a little less cheap but looked a little more reliable.
Oh, that's usually a good idea.
Yeah. And so I was able to get a screen, and then I looked up on YouTube how to actually switch them out, and I was successful.
Wow, that's amazing. When I get a bunch of friends who will try and need their screens replaced, I'll be sure to send them to you. I'll be like, look for the man with no shoes. Yeah, I learned a few things on YouTube. Probably one of the biggest was programming.
Oh, nice. You learned all your programming from YouTube?
I have, yes. I've never actually taken a single programming class. So you laugh at me, but the game, it runs really well. And
I'm glad. It just seems funny you being here at Mines and not taking a single programming class, just learning it all from YouTube.
well, usually we have the programmers, or the mining engineers, and
Right.
they're like, programming? We don't want to program. And
Of course.
programming's fun, though. It allows you to produce these video games and other miscellaneous things. And
It does seem very interesting.
oh, yeah, I enjoy it. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day, right?
Right. I mean, that's what you're in it for, just enjoying it. So.
Yep. And with that, I'm going to put a close to the Motivation Monday Power Hour. The next show is on Monday at 4, and the topic will be happiness. If you missed any episodes or would like to hear them again, you can find them on my YouTube channel, The Motivated Mike. Stay wise, my friends. Motivated Mike, out.